Good morning and afternoon, everyone. It's wonderful to see many of you here today. And thanks for making the time to join us for another session in our Strategy and Performance Master Series. For those who haven't met me yet, I'm Jerusalem. I'm an innovation consultant here at Actio. This series is brought to you by Actio. We're a strategy execution platform that helps organizations turn big ideas into measurable outcomes. From strategies and KPIs to projects and risks, Actio brings everything into one place. And with our embedded AI assistant, you get a real-time insight. Today, we're diving into a topic that's reshaping how leaders work, AI, and how it's transforming management practices. We'll unpack how AI can make an impact in the real world and how to harness it for better decision, and also get a glimpse into the future of strategic management in AI. If you're new to the Master Series, welcome. And this is part of a 8-part journey covering everything from strategy evolution to continuous improvement, OKR, and AI. We're now in our third session. If you missed our previous ones, I highly encourage you to go back and watch it. We kicked off with the evolution of strategy execution, exploring how visions becomes in action. And in our last session, we looked at using your OKRs to embrace agility and performance management. We're trying to bring in you different formats in our sessions. Some are in lecture, interview with an expert, or industry or case study. And today it will be a lecture format. Quick reminder, we've built a community space for strategy professionals like you to connect, share lessons learned, and ask questions. If you haven't joined yet, please do join our community. As always, drop your question in the chat anytime. We'll keep an eye out and make sure to tackle as many as we can. Before you head out, we would love to hear your feedback. So you'll find a quick survey in the link in the chat. So here's what we have lined up for you today. First, our experts will deliver a lecture. And I'll be back for a quick demo of showing how Actio's AI can support strategy execution in practice. Then we'll open up the floor for answers to the questions. I'm thrilled to welcome our guests for today. First, Daljeet Saran. He is an accomplished executive who drives AI-powered transformation across financial services, healthcare, and technology. He has helped companies unlock 700 million in revenue growth and $500 million in cost efficiencies by embedding AI and automation into core business models. With his strategy and many experience from BCG and Deloitte. And joining him is Guilherme Barbassa. He's the CEO of Actio Software, and he's the drive force behind our platform. He's dedicated to helping companies embed AI into strategy execution. Over to you, Guilherme.
Thank you, Ruslan, and welcome everybody. Thank you very much, Daljeet, for being here with us. It's an honor to have you over and pick a bit of your brain, right, on this topic that is making everybody alert to the changes that are coming, right, in every corporate process. And strategy management isn't different from that. We have all the impact that it's gonna is already happening, right? And we will discuss a little bit about what's to come as well, right, Daljeet? Before we start diving into the topic, here are Daljeet's extensive career summarized in a few points, right? I think we can move on. Jerusalem went through a bit of this. So we're going to cover these three main topics, but I'll go back to this, Daljeet. First, I want to just put on the context of strategy management. What are we going to talk about? So Antonio, could you put the slide with the framework, the strategy framework? So this strategy framework, we went through it in the first webinar. So I'm just going to give a little bit of context. This is the third webinar of the series, right? And we detailed this framework in the first one. So now I'm just going to put the context of today's topic, that is AI, on this same framework. And it's actually hard to do this because AI is permeating every aspect of corporate processes, from the big P, the big blue box there, that is our strategy formulation. So it'll have a lot of impact on how we formulate strategy, and even the concept of strategy formulation, maybe shifting from something that you do once in a while to maybe a continuous process, since AI is able to feed into this process continuously, right? To the strategy planning, right? So from the second smaller blue box here in our framework, so once you have a strategy defined, what are you going to do? Who's going to do it to implement this strategy and make it work in practice? So what are the action plans? What are the initiatives? What's the budget, right? So all of this is also going to be impacted by AI on how do you do that planning, right? And how do you cascade the strategy throughout the organization? And finally, the strategy monitoring, execution monitoring, and eventually correction, right? So both in the smaller PDCA cycle, the tactical level, and on the strategic level. So AI is going to permeate basically every aspect of the strategy management process, right? So we're going to go into more details of how we're going to do this. Daljeet, our audience is basically strategy professionals and performance management professionals. So I'm sure everybody has some contact with AI and what's going on in this aspect of, this revolution that's going on. But I would like to just level the playing field with just broad strokes of what is AI, and what are the big categories, because AI is a very broad definition, right? So what are the big categories within AI that we can explore, or has more connections with this strategy management process, right? Welcome, Daljeet, and thank you again for being here.
Thank you, Guilherme. And more importantly, to the broader Actio team and the community, right? Like I want to thank the Actio team for setting up the webinar series to educate the strategy practitioners, build this community, because at the end of the day, we are all together and we can learn from each other. So my sincerest thank you to all of everybody who's attending and who has contributed to this journey. As Guilherme mentioned, right, like there are three topics we want to cover as part of our discussion, which is one is if you have been interested in what is AI, how is this relevant to strategic planning, right? So we are going to cover about the linkage between strategic planning and the framework that Guilherme just shared. I'm excited for the discussion that we are going to have. Second one is, as he mentioned, right, there are many AI tools that are existing all over the place, right? So how is AI disrupting the business and of strategy, planning, management, and why does it matter today? And then put all of this in context of real life case examples, right? Like talk about things that are happening in public domain. So coming out of today, My goal out of this session is essentially to move beyond the AI hype that exists to practical applications to drive measurable results in your organizations. So with that, Antonio, maybe we can just go to the next poll slide. So would like to get just a quick sense from the audience around, have you used ChatGPT or any other similar tools, right? Like Google Gemini, Claude, in your daily work. And when I say daily work, it could be as simple as doing research on other people, doing meeting preparations, doing anything that you would characterize as part of your core daily routine. Could be once a week, could be once a month. But have you used any of the tools? Because that gives us a sense of how prevalent the usage of these tools are beyond just the hype. So maybe I just wait for a second or two, and then we can talk about what we're seeing.
My suggestion is, let's put here in the chats
Yep.
Your question, your answers, and we can see it from here.
Yeah, and Guilherme or yours, I'm not monitoring the chat, so maybe I'll ask you or somebody else to just highlight or comment on what you see as. So I see a fair bit of hand raises and yeses. So at least that's a great place to be. I have also found, in my experience and research, looking at some of the publications that have come out of consulting firms, that they have said that about 80% of corporate strategists acknowledge AI as a critical to their roadmap and ways of working. Yet almost 3/4 of that, which is essentially, right, like 80% say yes, but almost 3/4 of the people are struggling to achieve value from their AI initiatives, right? So very telling from that perspective. So if you go to Antonio, slide number 6, let me put all of this thing in context. Next slide, please.
So, sorry, Daljeet, we have the question here on the polls.
Go ahead.
From the polls, we're going to be able to see how many people are already interacting with AI. So please, let's just give it a minute so people can use this, and we will be able to see the consolidated answers. So 85% for till now said yes, it's my digital co-pilot. Coincidentally, Copilot is one of the AIs in the market, right?
Yes.
But almost everybody is using already AI in their daily work, right?
Yeah,
okay.
So that is terrific. So like, at least we have a very highly educated and engaged audience of about 85% people. But so there is still a set of people who may be using it, underusing it, or underutilizing the capabilities that are available. So something for the folks who have not considered it to go down the path of looking for brainstorming, looking for diligence, looking for just basic meeting prep. It makes your life much more easier on a day-to-day basis. So as Guilherme was mentioning, right, like the strategic planning cycle in the past versus today, right? So traditional strategy with AI strategy as an augmentation, and then performance monitoring, right? Like, so I tend to classify these into just simple categories of in the past, in the traditional annual planning cycle, to now it is becoming more and more real-time strategy adjustment, right? Like if you look at the prior slide, we had a continuous feedback loop in terms of things happening. You get continuous feedback, you improve, and then re-implement it, and then continue to refine it. Competitive analysis. This is one of the things I have found to be the biggest game changer in my life, because there is a lot of public data available, but I can ask a question to one of the AI chat GPT tools to give me an answer. What information can you summarize from a strategy perspective on competitor XYZ? What have they launched? So it tends to pull together information and summarize it. Now, at times it hallucinates, at times it makes up stuff. So you have to go back and cross-validate it. But from a primary asking a question to get some information, is helpful. Two, I always ask the same question to multiple tools at the same time. I would just write the exact same question across 2 or 3 different tabs on my computer to see if one of them is completely telling different than others, so that at least that gives me sense of consistency. So that's one. So I have evolved towards getting towards more dynamic market intelligence. So if I had 10 hours of work to do, now I can complete some of that very quickly and then use the rest of the time to do more critical thinking. Second is moving away from reactive performance management to predictive performance management, right? So one of the capabilities that the Actio platform is around being able to tell when you're going to miss a milestone or a platform, milestone or a critical deliverable. That is very important in our project management hats, which is to understand when there would be a delay or a slippage. So some of that is beginning to be enabled by some of these tools as a result. Guilherme, you asked me a question, and Antonio, if you go to the next slide, which is essentially how do I classify AI, and where is the world happening? So I tend to think about AI in 3 broad buckets, right? So AI. Let me start with the definition of what is AI, because it has been in existence for a long period of time, and people keep on talking about generative AI as if it's completely new field versus AI versus machine learning versus like things like that. So AI in my mind is systems that perform tasks requiring some version of human intelligence, right? Like that's essentially how I tend to think about in a plain speaking language. When I think about artificial intelligence in business context, I think of systems, uh, pattern recognition, prediction, optimization, decision support. Those are the types of things when I think about it. So in my definition, uh, there are 3 different fields, which is one is machine learning, which is around predictive models, optimization. So this is an established field, has been in existence for the last 10 years in terms of a lot of development, right? Like so when you look into your calendar and you have to travel from one place to another, your calendar tells you, hey, you should leave now. Or when you are asking Uber to come to your location and drive you to airport, it tells you it's going to take you 90 minutes. So that use cases have been in existence for a period of time. And on the consumer side, a lot of us are just used to opening apps and getting some answers without having to think about it. In the past, you had to calculate. Second one is around natural language processing or large language models, right? So this is around language understanding, summarization capabilities, knowledge synthesis. So when you upload to ChatGPT or something, a 20-page document, and you say, can you highlight or summarize this or give me a headline for this document? That is happening through large language models and natural language processing. So it is trying to understand what the document is saying, trying to understand intent, and be able to tell you what does the document intend to say or not. And then the third part is AI agent. So this is essentially the most relevant and most cutting edge developing field, which is essentially autonomous goal seeking systems, where you essentially tell it to do something, it performs a series of activities or actions and comes back with some answers. So when I think about, one of the questions I get a lot from people is, how is this relevant to me? I'm not an engineer, or I haven't studied, I don't have a PhD in machine learning. How is this relevant to me? And my answer is, strategy teams do not need to build these systems, but they must understand what are the capabilities, what can it do, and how does that impact your respective organizations? Because at the end of the day, we are in the business of serving our broader teams and organizations, and being able to understand how can you leverage a tool or a system to either automate some of the routine work and or get a little bit faster to market is how I tend to think about it. And when I look at like public comments from, whether it is from David Solomon or at Goldman Sachs or other people, everybody is talking about more and more investment into generative AI, right? And some of the companies are investing more than hundreds of millions of dollars, and some are investing in billions of dollars, right? Like you read about Mark Zuckerberg offering $100 million pay packages to some of the leading AI researchers. Like that is all in the desire to build newer cutting edge systems and models as we think about it.
Yeah. So trying to connect this with our day-to-day tasks, right? How is this each of these big buckets going to change our daily work when we're doing strategy management. Machine learning, I guess it could help us cascade the strategy throughout the organization, helping set goals for each KPI, for example, right? That would be one of the applications where it could, predict what is doable and what is could be expected for each goal, and give parameters for people to negotiate goals and targets throughout the organization. That makes sense. Could that be one application for
Yes.
machine learning?
Yeah. So if we go to the next slide, Antonio, right? Like I think you ended up essentially just preempting a question that
Okay.
like no, this is great. So I tried to think about like use cases and other examples, right? Because that's what's important. So when I think about how so if you told me that machine learning can do only X, that's not the way I look at it. I tend to look at it, I have a need to do A, B, and C. How can I get best answers to that problem? So when I think about the broader question that we as practitioners get asked is market trend analysis. That's just as an example, right? So people want to understand what is happening with either product, a company. So at that point in time, you're using LLMs plus external data to ingest and understand what is happening in the market, what is happening with your competitors, why did we lose market share or somebody gain a market share. Try to bring context in terms of, oh, somebody else launched a net new product, and as a result, there was a very rapid decline that happened in a particular thing. It can also be used for scenario planning, because that's the other aspect of our life, which is essentially to say like, hey, what happens if 5% increment in investment happens in innovation? Where would our market share lead to, right? So that's one example of market trend analysis. I tend to think about the second example as portfolio optimization. So like Actio, we have our Tune software deployed at a bunch of different places. I tend to think about, right, like you want to have historical performance, but you also want to know what is happening both in the business at a particular site and making sure that the goals are cascaded, but on the other side, people are delivering on what they have, right? So you could use that for demand forecasting. You could think about resource optimization. You could think about supply chain risk assessment. Is your supplier at risk from floods? Like any of those examples, you could do it using data and an appropriately trained model on your use case. You could, as I said, use for scenario planning, right? Which is essentially you could think about, right? There is political change happening in the United States. What does that mean for my business? You could think about, I'm planning to launch a net new product. What would adoption curves look like? What does loss erosion look like? What is my ROI? You could use Excel. You could also use Excel in conjunction with something else to do data planning exercises. And then a lot of machine learning, LLMs, agents is beginning to be used in M&A due diligence, right? Which is essentially you are looking at a target, you want to understand what is the churn on their customers, what is the employee sentiment. You want to figure out what does the impact on valuation as a result of deals that are happening, right? So you could use all of this. I also included on this page a few things that are of important to look at when you think about other companies who are doing this thing publicly and they've started to talk about it, right? Like whether it is Amazon talking about using that for route optimization, using that for demand planning, because seasonally, all of us order more gifts at year end. And as a result, Amazon has to employ more number of temporary workers. They had to build like systematic models in order to get that demand planning done. So Guilherme, in my mind, machine learning is a mature, very mature field at this point of time, right? Like, yes, you need skills, but some of those skills for us practitioners, whether it is learning, you don't have to become a data scientist, but having familiarity with some version of Python is helpful. Some version of awareness of how databases are structured is helpful, because then you can talk the language of product designers, you can talk the language of engineers who are coding, and be able to tell you that like this is where the data might be housed, and then be a support to them. It also helps to talk the language of the founders that you're evaluating and assessing, if you're in an M&A type capability to be able to figure out whether the technology is that place. On the use of large language models, right? I think that depends on your use case, your flexibility. More importantly, being able to negotiate the right set of IP rights, and this is again outside the bounds of this discussion, but as an organization, being able to negotiate the rights and privileges, so that way your proprietary data is not getting fed into outside world, but that's something to be aware of, and that's how I tend to think about the world of strategy, AI, machine learning, and how it's evolving and where is it at.
I have a particular interest on agents, right? So machine learning has been here for quite a while. You mentioned 10 years, and it's finding its niches and in its applications. LLMs, they're market available since ChatGPT launched, right? November 22, if I'm not mistaken, and it's been evolving extremely fast,
Rapidly, right?
But agents are newer, right? Agents are maybe a few months of actual reaching the market, right? How do you perceive that AI agents are ready to be deployed in the context of strategy management? Is that something still to come, or do we already have practical uses of agents in this context?
So, Guilherme, as you and I are practitioners in this field, we are seeing the continuous evolution. So to be able to say that it has already arrived or yet to arrive is a little bit of a false choice, right? It's a field that is happening and shaping up today as we speak. I'm looking at, so one of the questions that I get or I used to get is essentially, our competitor did something last night, yesterday, or 3 days ago, and as a result, their stock price has moved up. What's going on? So that's a question. In the past, I would subscribe to newsletters that would summarize some of this information, and then I had to open my email first thing in the morning to look at in the newsletter if there was any mention of something like that could be a topic of discussion today, to be prepared for an answer that's informed. I could create an agent that essentially scans it on my behalf, summarizes it, and puts it at the top of my inbox. So that's a use case, which is essentially somebody used a crawler to put a newsletter together. I took a newsletter and on top of that, a monitoring software to summarize it for myself. So that's an example of very low key. The other example is in our world is essentially we tend to run projects or portfolio of projects where essentially you're dependent on a series of milestones happening, and as a result, something else getting impacted. Sometimes there are lots and lots of action items, and you can't essentially figure out whether some action items are going to have a domino impact. So from a monitoring, being able to provide preemptive alerts, being able to do variance reporting to say like, hey, even though the changes happen 3 or 4 levels down, but it's going to have an impact on you next week. So much rather prepare for things, right? So those are the types of examples that I have seen happening. I've also seen people deploying agents that are much more automatic in terms of trade automation, right? So if you see there is potential for perpetual airline delay happening. And if you find, looking at the data, that it was made by one manufacturer, as a result, you can go back and look at that. Why is that happening? Is it because of some part components? Is it because some of the people are beginning to use the agent, automated agents to do remote monitoring when you had to do it on your own. So it's an emerging, fast evolving, very rapidly deploying field as we can speak, right? Like if you look at Salesforce as an example, they're not talking of any more Salesforce. They talk about it as Agent Force, because that's essentially they're trying to reposition and position themselves. That like a lot of this is going to become Agent Force versus being a Salesforce. So
nice. So I'd like to look ahead into the future and understand how AI will fundamentally reshape our strategy management processes. How do you see our, strategy management in corporations, 10 years from now? But
Yeah. So
before you go into addressing that topic, I'd just like to remind everybody that is watching that you can ask your questions. There's a questions and answers icon here in Team. You can put in your questions there. We're reserving some 10 minutes in the end to address your questions. So feel free to put the questions there, and we're going to get to it right after the uh, seeing how technology can support this process as well in practice, right? How AI in practice can support strategy management process. But going back, Daljeet, how do you see, AI or strategy management in 10 years? How
right.
will AI reshape it?
So Antonio, if you can get to slide 10, please, and then that way at least it frames. Next slide, please. Yes, please. So I tend to think about Guilherme in yes, 10 years is a long time in today's evolving
Yeah.
world. But if you had asked me what's going to happen because of Chat GPT introduction everywhere, it would have been very short-sighted to say like nothing is going to happen. It's going to take 10 years. So I have tried to divide this thing into like horizons that I talk about, right? Like in the next year, maybe in the next 5, and then in the longer term, which is 10-year time frame. So my experience, impression, and where aspiration is that, in my view, in the short term, which is over the next year or so, strategy as a field is going to be augmented by AI, by generative AI, by machine learning. It's going to be an and conversation, not an or conversation. So we are going to be augmented, not replaced as such. So that's the first part of it. The second part of it, right? I think you talked about it in your webinar one. I'm seeing it more and more that annual planning cycle is becoming to be replaced by real time rolling recalibration of things as we go along, right? It's not once a year where essentially you do annual strategic planning and you don't bother about it. It's becoming more and more repetitive, more and more intuitive, more and more cycle. So we are also beginning to, because of the capabilities of tools, what happened during COVID, a lot of teams went into scenario planning. In 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 the last year, there has been elections in a lot of different countries because of trade wars and other things that are happening in politics. A lot of discussion is beginning to happen on scenario planning, on simulating different environments, right? So that will become a part of strategic planning, that will become a core part of discipline in our strategy functions, right? So simulating decision environments for real time, what I would characterize as strategic A/B testing, right? Like it's a product idea, but it's essentially you go into scenario and say like, hey, what about this? What about that? It will also force transparency and participation from lots and lots of different people. Now, it's not like strategy happens in the corporate office somewhere far away. Since we use our tune tool to essentially cascade it down, so which means essentially more people will become engaged, more people will get activated. So that's in the short term, that AI, as somebody said, right, will become as a strategic co-pilot, right? That's how I tend to think about it, right? That in the short term, strategy and AI will start to coexist.
So
In the
go ahead.
in the 10-year vision, now going to the other end of the question, which is essentially what happens in 10 years, right? So I will think about it as AI will become chief of staff to executives, right? Like you have these capabilities available, like the expectation, very similar to when you book an airline ticket, you expect to be able to trace your luggage. That's an expectation. When you book an Uber, you want to be able to see where the car is, how long it's going to take, and show up, whether it is Uber or any other platform. But that's essentially so being able to use AI, being able to be fluent in that language is a must have, right? It's not a nice to have. It's not somebody else has a capability. In the world today, there is this concept of digital twin, right? So being able to take your enterprise footprint network and be able to replicate and simulate that in different places is going to become very important as a capability. The part that I tend to think about it, which is like more and more organizations are have access to these tools for early warning systems, but being able to pick what is going to happen or not will become so judgment will become more important, and judgment will come from being participative, being able to participate and understand this thing. So early warning systems, simulation, digital twins, AI as chief of staff would be essentially the 5 to 10 horizon in my mind.
Yeah. So strategy management in the future could look something like you have a digital twin of your company in a system, and you have scenarios, rupture scenarios, political, and so on. And these scenarios can simulate results for your company, revenue, costs, expenses, uh, investment needed to capture market share in every different scenario. And as time goes on and new information go into the model, it could automatically tweak, tune up or down the targets for each KPIs for each department in your organization to automatically adjust to the shifting strategy given by the scenario. So I'm trying to think how this all connects into a future strategy management process, right? First, it's continuous, right? It's not something that you go in a weekend every 3 or 4 years and build a strategy, right? It's something that as information come in, it automatically processes that information against the scenarios that you have and adjusts all of the, okay, now we're going to need a new project, or even stop a project that's going on because scenario shifted and it's not relevant anymore. And all of these decision makings could be within the framework, right? I'm trying to create an idea of how these things connect. The scenario-based strategy with autonomous agents, the embedded decision engines. So stop this initiative, create this initiative, tune up this target for this KPI, tune down this target. It's not that relevant anymore, and all of this could be done automatically.
Yeah, so maybe if Antonio, if you go to the next slide, that might be you ended up teeing up my next idea, which is essentially
Okay.
actually one more slide, please. Yes. So I tend to think about it as like it's a combination of many things that need to happen over a period of time, right? So it's about as you want to move away from intuition to evidence, you want to move away from experience to augmentation, right? Like you want to think about it in terms of many capabilities. So first of that is technical infrastructure, right? So you want to have data integration across platforms, connecting internal, external sources. So it's having access to data. Then the second part is talent. So whether it is understanding AI literacy, prompt engineering skills, being able to be proficient about what's happening in the organization. So talent, reskilling becomes very important. You also want to move towards having a culture of experimentation, right? So you asked me if you gave everybody tools to do scenario planning, what happens then? So one thing that happens is everybody, like not everybody, even though everybody has tools, not everybody uses them, but the people who uses, then you're able to use a scenario that you generate. And if you find something really troublesome, you can share that instance of the scenario with relevant people to start soliciting feedback. So instead of waiting for data collection to happen over 6 weeks, then slides to be built over next 4 weeks, and overall project timeline becoming 2 months, you spent a few days building a scenario, having a meeting. So your decision cycle, which used to be past 10 weeks, has now shortened to a week, where essentially you can get to a decision or an answer quickly. And as a result, you as a CEO or a senior leader can make judgments for resource prioritizations, resource reallocation. So that is a skill that needs to be done over and over a period of time, because you can't essentially do a scenario planning once and said, oh, I did it one time, it came back with very negative answers. Since it's a capability, it's rapidly deployable, you could think about it, do something about it, and as a result. So that's the second part of it. Tied to this is essentially hallucination, like making up stuff, synthetic data, like putting all of that to the side. You have to think about what are the governance, what is the AI ethics that you need to put into place, and use all of this in the idea of agile, right? You can't essentially have processes that last for 6 months. You want to essentially have teams that come together, come to an answer quickly, and then probably disperse and do something else, but with the intention that over a period of time, you're building multi-skilled people in the organization. So that in a nutshell is the answer. And looking at the clock, I want to essentially leave everybody with just one question, which is essentially, if you had AI capabilities available to you as a practitioner, what would you do to transform your business? That's the one question I would leave. And then if Antonio, if you go to the last slide, please, that's essentially something that, if next one, please. Yep. So I included a few resources that people can refer and find for additional reading, finding more resources. Uh, this deck, along with everything else, would be available to the strategy community within the Actio platform. So please feel free to do it. Look me up on LinkedIn, send me a contact request. Happy to jump on a call, talk through anything else. But that's essentially what I wanted to get through, GMA, in the time allocated. And we can obviously pick up this conversation after the demo to make sure that we address any other questions that come up.
Yeah, the topic is very broad, and we could keep on going for hours, right? But the capabilities that you put on the slide there, I think they're essential for and super important for the people that are here with us today, because they will go back to their organization after this webinar, and they will have to build these capabilities to prepare for the future, right? So I think that was spot on what's important and relevant for our audience here. So now we're going to see in practice, some of these AI that we're talking about helping a strategy management process. So to do that, I'm going to call in Jerusalem again, so she can show within a software how AI can contribute to the strategy management process. And I'll ask you to stay a little bit more after, Daljeet, so we can address the questions that we're expecting here in our question and answers. And audience, please put your questions here. Any comments, any questions are welcome, so we can address what's important for you, right? Jerusalem, right.
All right. Thank you, Guilherme. Before I jump into the demo, I wanted to share the slide. It shows how Actio helps you integrate all your strategy execution platform in one place, and also where the AI fits. Right. So this slide shows how you can do your strategy execution in an integrated way. So it starts with the strategic objectives, where you design where you want to go, and then you have the KPIs and the operational level indicators that helps you measure your strategic objective, right? And then we see that we have an Actio AI capability to support this in that process. We have the strategic initiatives, the program design, and the projects, and also that fits into helping you achieve your strategic objectives. And I also put that an Actio AI support there. Also, we have the OKRs and the risks associated to the strategic objective, so that we get a view of all your strategic processes in one place. This is to help us to make sure that nothing falls through the crack. So all the points that you see Actio AI, that will be like an AI touch points that I'll be showing you in our demo. So let's get started. So this is the big picture, the strategic map of an organization. It's designed in a balanced scorecard format from the perspective of financial, clients, internal process, and learning and growth. You see the strategic objectives, and next to them, you see the performance. Green showing that it's on track, yellow it's at risk, and the red shows that it's underperforming. From this chart that we can understand that where we need to put our attention. And this is not just a static visual that's going to help us, but it's an interactive dashboard where we could make a further analysis into why, or like what are the drivers behind this performance. So let's take a deep dive into one of the strategic objectives, which is add value to shareholders. So let's take a look at the drivers behind this. So for this objective, we have the EBITDA margin and EBITDA being the major drivers. And also we have this in strategic initiative and OKR. All right, but we see that the reason why we're not achieving this objective is because of our EBITDA. And we can investigate this further by breaking it down. And from this, we understand that OPEX, expense, and revenue are the main drivers, but the gap is in the revenue. If I open this, I'm going to be able to pin down where the shortfall is. So I'm not achieving my target when in revenue British Columbia. All right. So by looking at this, I now understand that I'm not achieving my strategic objective because of my performance in British Columbia. And I know the person who's responsible for it, Luciano. All right. So let's do a further analysis on why this is happening. So this is where we can do our fact cause analysis for our goal deviation. So what I'm looking at now is the monthly performance for the entire year. I can register my facts. And then we can also have this Pareto chart that shows us how much each one of them contribute to the goal deviation. All right. And when it comes to my cause here, this is where we have our AI integration. All right. This is what's going to help us in understanding why the reason behind we're not achieving our goal. So when I open here, like generate causes, you're going to see the result that I'm get. So here it gives me an initial list of potential causes for my goal deviation. All right. So if you can take a look at, it says that the sales target was 5% below forecast. It's very specific. It's not generic response on where you can get when you go and ask ChatGPT what could be the cause for my goal deviation. It's very specific. I see that I was overspending 15%. There's a reduction in number for products sold. And even sales conversion, it was 80% below. So it doesn't stop here. So if I have any type of question, I can interact with it further. I can see that where, for example, in this question, which product line had the biggest drop? I can ask that. And you're going to see that the response that I'm going to get here is very specific. So for this one, like fabric and home care, I know what my target was, and then there's a gap here. So there are key points that I want you to notice here. First thing is that it's possible to interact with it. Ask it any question that you have in the software, like any data, and it will give you like a very specific answer. You don't have to go looking for it in the software or anywhere else. I can ask any other questions, like were there any marketing challenge? And the other thing is it also relates KPIs that are linked to it. So it doesn't need to be only about this specific KPIs. It can analyze all the data that you have in the software, and you can get response for that. And in addition, You can also upload any relevant company-related information you have to the software, and it will take it into consideration whenever you get a response. So it could be your annual reports, market analysis, or new policies, and you can also ask it to make if there is um, any implication on your KPIs or objective because of this new policy. So it's not only limited to the data that you have in the software, but you can also add other information about your company. And whenever it makes analysis, it will take that into consideration. All right, so this is one touch points that I wanted to show you. Uh, our AI capability and helping you drive a cause for your goal deviation. So another point that I want to mention, that I wanted to show you is our AI capability in helping you draft an action plan. So we have this strategic objective. I can see my programs. So for revenue growth initiatives, I have these two projects. I can see what what I was supposed to achieve by now and what my performance is like. It's 98%. If I open here, I can see the S curve, what that look. All right. So let's take a look at one of the projects and let's ask it to create an action plan. So you know, sorry, just I wanted to open a different one. Expansion into new market. Here you see that you have an action plan. So you have the activities in a structured way. You see the activity and sub-activity, the start date and the end dates for your actions, and the person responsible for delivering those activities. You have a Gantt chart here showing the dependencies, the status. All right. So, and let's take a support from our AI consultants to help us create an action plan. If I open here, okay, you're going to see a different type of interaction. It didn't give me an action plan. In fact, it asked a question for which specific market that I'm considering for expansion. All right. The reason behind this is that unless you give it like enough information about the scope or enough detail about what you want to achieve, it doesn't give you an enough action plan. It's going to ask you questions first until it gets enough information, and then it will make a list of action plan at the end. The reason behind this is that if you go and do on ChatGPT and ask it to create an action plan, it's going to be very generic. So you have to make sure to give it enough detail in order for it to be good action plan. And for that reason, it's going to ask questions, and it also guides the user by giving examples on how to answer them. So I'll say what specific market, I'll say country, maybe Brazil. So it's going to continue on asking questions until it's enough. It has enough information. So beauty and so it gives me some example answers. I'll just use that for now. So it will continue, and at the end, it will make a list. Or at any time, I can ask it to make a list, and it would just give me that action plan. Okay, so this is one touch points that we have with ChatGPT. Another one is with OKR. So let me open one OKR, and you can see how it also helps us with creating key results for our objective. All right, so what you're looking at here is our OKR dashboard. So you can see to achieve this add value to shareholder objective, I have these two objectives, and for this objective, I have these three key results. And I have the progress bar that shows me how much that I have achieved. I have like the check-ins and the initiatives, my status of the initiatives. I can also see that, and the confidence level that I have when it comes to achieving my key results. All right, so for this, another objective that we have here, achieve sustainable growth in Brazil, let's ask it to suggest key results. All right, so here also, it didn't just give me like a list of key results. It asked a question: what specific revenue growth target do you have in mind for Brazil? So I have to give it an answer first before it gives me like a list of key results. So this one is just an example to help us guide and on how to answer it. I'm going to use this for now, but I'll just keep on interacting with it first. So this one has a second question: what are the potential strategies or areas of focus you believe you could drive their revenue growth? So I have to select or like give my answer here, and then eventually it will give me key results. All right, and when I have that, I'm going to select whichever that I want to add, and I'll just simply add my key results in the field here. All right. The reason behind this, that why we don't have this agent AI that would just automatically populate it, because we believe that the person who's doing the interaction, or who's designing the project or the OKR, is the one who's an expert, and that person needs to select which one that they wanted to add when it comes to adding like key results or like generating an action plan. They're the ones who are the experts. So we wanted to give the flexibility to them to select what works and what doesn't work for them. So in a nutshell, like this is what I prepare for you, like three main AI touch points that we have in the software, but this is not all that we have. We have much more. We have this personalized email sending for individual, showing them what are the dependencies action that they need to do in the software. We have the systematic analysis of the company performance, not just specific to one KPI, but overall, how is it performing? And also like deeper insights to one KPI or a project or strategic objective. We have different capabilities integrated. If you're interested in knowing more about it, I'll put my contact in the chat. Feel free to reach out to me. I'm available anytime. And yeah, that's it. Over to you, Guilherme.
Thank you, Jerusalem. We're running short on time, but let's try to get at least 2 or 3 questions in. Let me choose some of these questions. From Mudassar, if AI can automate the other processes, then don't you think the strategies can also be automated and more efficient?
Efficient, I would agree with that part, because time to create something is there. But in order to create strategy, if you ask a generic model, what it will spit out as an answer is going to be applicable to 15 other competitors. You don't want a strategy that is just looks like the other guy and the other guy. So investing of time by our people in developing that is specific to us is a better answer. Efficiency, absolutely, because as I said, right, like you can do a lot of modeling, scenario, and other things on your own. So that's just one part of it. Two, you also want to protect certain parts of your strategy within the 4 walls of your organization. So you don't want to be posting information on a public space. So that's why you train all these models, all these capabilities on your information, so that way other people don't know what you're doing to that level of extent.
Okay, that's interesting. So, as you said, it's going to enhance human activity, right? Not
Right.
necessarily completely substitute it, right? Okay. Another question from VJ. When implementing enterprise strategy across all levels of the organizations, where should we use AI and where must humans retain control? So a little bit on what you already answered, right? Do you want to complement here on?
Yeah, no, Guilherme, I think so the first part of the question, where all levels is a short answer, right? But it will differ and depend on, very similar to the strategic planning process, very similar to everything else that we do. It varies by different levels within the organization, right? At the individual contributor level, you're thinking about tasks, you're thinking about automation, you're thinking about things that are action oriented. At a slightly managerial level or at an executive level, you're thinking about cross enterprise, so portfolio view. So summarization becomes, prioritization becomes important. So capabilities are different, but at all levels, should we be leveraging the AI? And obviously, humans should always be in the loop. You cannot depend on a machine to generate your answers and then realize that it just ended up creating something that is not even true or remotely possible from there.
Okay. Um, Another question here. Uh, as you said, AI is very much useful, but unfortunately, all tools are paid, which incur additional cost, as all AI are not free. Let me try to answer this one, and you correct me if I'm wrong, but the idea is to use AI to increase productivity in your company, right? So, yes, the AI is paid, the tools are paid, but we expect that the productivity increase should definitely cover that cost. So you will reduce costs elsewhere or increase your output in a way that it should cover this cost um, of the use of AI. In Actio, we have a corporate contract where everybody in Actio can use AI from this corporate contract we have, and we've seen productivity increase from coding all the way to just bureaucratic tasks like writing an email. So you reduce time spent on these activities, and therefore you need less people, right? Covering the costs that you eventually have.
Right. Like, and Guillermo, one additional thing. Every tool has free version. It's not that the only way to use a particular tool. If there is a need, as KMA said, right, like you can go to your corporate place, headquarters, and talk to them about licensing. But for everything else, for experimentation, for routine usage, there are free tools available. That's one part of the equation. The second part of the equation is, please be hyper vigilant in putting any company specific information into free tools or outside, that is not outside the license, because that's a much bigger problem than just the license fee itself, because you don't want to find proprietary information in public domain because you heard it on a webinar. That's not the advice we are giving. Use the tools that are available, leverage them sensibly, but be hyper vigilant on the information that you put, and go within the confines of it.
Perfect. And a last one, just for us to um, address it. What's the role of AI in project management? So Jerusalem showed an example, right, of uh, helping create the details or the activities of the project based on AI, right, using AI to do that. But what are the roles can you see in project management?
So I think Jerusalem, in my view, did an exceptionally great job in showing everything that a project manager is responsible, right? Setting up a project, updating KPIs, communicating, summarization, and then there are other tools as well. And recognizing we are a few minutes over, so that would be my place. And then if you have questions, right, I'm available. Jerusalem is available. The community is available to help you figure out anything specific to your mandate.
Perfect. Well, Daljeet, thank you for your contribution here. It was priceless. It was very good insights. For people that are our audience, this conversation continues on the community. So please sign up, not just conversation with us, but also amongst yourselves. And if you want to reach out to connect with us in Actio or with Daljeet, please do so. We're more than happy to talk one-on-one with you guys. Okay. Thank you very much, and see you on our next webinar in about 3 weeks. Bye-bye.